So how does a small, kind of rainy island at the edge of the world become a global empire? And then, well, something else entirely. Today, we're going to unpack 1,000 years of British history through 5 moments of radical, world-altering transformation.
To the Romans, this place was basically a legend, a mysterious island at the very edge of the map, full of, well, barbarians who did something truly disgusting in their eyes. They drank milk. That's where this story starts, a land of myth.
So the big question is, how did that place become a global superpower? Well, it's a story of constant reinvention, of these dramatic, fundamental shifts. And we're going to walk through it by looking at 5 of those key moments, those transformations that really redefined what it even meant to be British.
All right, transformation number 1. And it all kicks off not with the Romans, but in the year 1066. This wasn't just another battle. It was a full-scale invasion that would totally rewrite the country's DNA. I'm talking about the Norman Conquest.
You see, the Normans didn't just show up and change the management. No, this was a total system reboot. They installed a brand new operating system for the entire country. Suddenly, all the land belonged to one person, the king. The language of the powerful wasn't English anymore, it was French. And all those old wooden halls? They got replaced by these massive, intimidating stone castles that just loomed over the landscape. Literally everything changed. And the software for this new operating system? That was the feudal system. It was this perfect pyramid of power. It locked everyone into a rigid structure that made sure all the loyalty, all the resources, all the power flowed from this huge peasant base at the bottom, right up to a single point at the top, the king.
And to really hammer home this new level of control, William the Conqueror did something pretty extraordinary. He ordered a nationwide audit. I mean, can you imagine that today? But they did it back in the 11th century. The Domesday Book was essentially a complete inventory of the entire country's wealth. Every single cow, every field, every pig. All recorded for one simple reason: taxation and absolute control.
Okay, let's jump forward a bit to our next huge transformation. And this one wasn't sparked by invaders from overseas. Nope, this one was all down to a king's personal crisis. A crisis that would end up severing England from the rest of Catholic Europe for centuries.
So you might think you know the story of the Reformation, right? But in England, it didn't start with some big theological debate. It started in the palace. It was a political move, from the top down, all born from one king's desperate need for a son to carry on his name.
And that single decision, well, it plunged the country into a whole century of chaos. You had this wild religious whiplash back and forth, and a lot of violence. But out of all that fire, something new was forged. A distinctly English national identity, one that set Britain on a totally separate path from the rest of Europe.
Our third transformation is all about a completely different kind of power. It's not about the power of kings anymore, or popes. No, this is about the raw, gritty, world-changing power of steam, iron, and coal.
This new era was literally powered by machines. Just try to imagine it. By the late 19th century, 2,000 steam engines were just pounding and hissing all across Britain. That was the new heartbeat of the world, an industrial heart, powering everything from textile mills to the new railways that were crisscrossing the country.
So how did they fuel this revolution? Well, Britain built itself a brand new superhighway system made of water. They dug over 2,000 miles of canals by 1815. That's enough to get you from London all the way to Baghdad. This network became the arteries of industry, carrying the coal that was its lifeblood. And all this new industrial wealth created a huge new middle class, and that totally rewired the social order. By the 1880s, the single biggest job in the entire country, it wasn't factory worker, it wasn't farmer, it was domestic servant. Over 1.25 million people were working in service. And with this incredible industrial engine roaring at home, Britain looked outward. Fueled by all this might, it built a global empire so massive, so sprawling, that at its peak, the sun literally never set on it. This small island had somehow become the workshop and the ruler of the world. But, as we all know, empires don't last forever. Our fourth transformation takes us into the turbulent 20th century. This was a time when Britain's whole place in the world was challenged, fought over, and in the end, completely remade from the ground up. I mean, the 20th century was just a brutal reckoning. 2 world wars left Britain victorious on paper, but basically bankrupt. Its massive empire started to unravel, really kicking off with Indian independence in 1947. So what did Britain do? It turned inward. It started building a new kind of society with things like the National Health Service at its core. It was this long, profound search for a new identity in a post-imperial world. A search, you could argue, that's still going on right up to Brexit and beyond.
So, after all that upheaval, all those changes, what's left? Why does 1,000 years of conquests and crises and empires still matter to us today? Well, let's talk about the echoes.
The truth is, the echoes of this history are everywhere. They're baked into the modern world. Think about it. The English language, it's the language of global business and science. Parliamentary democracy, adopted all over the world. Common law principles, they form the basis for countless legal systems. And that's before we even get to the music, the literature, the films. Britain's journey continues to shape not just the island, but the whole world.
So if there's one single constant in Britain's story, it's this: constant change. From the Norman conquest right through to Brexit, this place has reinvented itself over and over and over again. And that leaves us with the ultimate cliffhanger, the final question: what on earth will the next reinvention be?